Children's Hospital backs down after nurses told Next the hospital's bait and switch on benefits put them in a horrible situation. Denver backs down on sending migrants to Aurora after Next showed you how vulnerable people in Aurora ended up on the streets to make room for migrants.
He said he'll find shelter for them. That's not my issue at that point.
A farewell to a legend on local TV in Colorado, as written by his son, who happens to work on this program. And finding the long-lost ring was only the beginning of the story.
They had found the ring 8 years before, and for 8 years had been looking for Brian Ball.
Brian is gone. We'll meet his very grateful mother tonight on Next. Children's Hospital Colorado is reversing a benefit cut for its nurses after those nurses told Next they would be forced to quit or go deeply into debt to pay for tuition costs that Children's had promised to pay. So now Children's will pay the tuition for the nurses already in the program and just stop offering it to new employees. Our Steve Staker broke that story here and updates us on today's change of heart by Children's.
One nurse told me she and her colleagues at Children's Hospital were walking around hugging each other this afternoon, overjoyed by a staff-wide email, this time with good news. The hospital's president announcing Children's is doing a 180, restoring a full ride tuition benefit for staff who've already enrolled in degree programs.
I think I go back between feeling like really frustrated and then just being upset and a bit tearful.
Last week, staffers told me they were stunned when the hospital announced it would no longer fully fund tuition benefits. One employee said her partner gave up a job elsewhere so she could stay in Denver for this schooling. Another glared at the potential of a $35,000 bill to finish her schooling on her own, schooling that she had only signed up for because Children's offered it as a benefit. This afternoon, the hospital's president said the senior leadership team at Children's had, quote, additional conversations with team members currently enrolled in the program. She wrote, while we did our best to make our original decision thoughtfully and with care and consideration, it is based on those conversations and relationships with our team members that we have decided to maintain the original benefits offered to those currently enrolled in a fully funded program. The hospital says 500 employees will now be allowed to keep their full tuition benefits to finish their programs. As a result, the hospital says there won't be new enrollment for employees in 2024, except for a few targeted technical programs.
So we reported yesterday that a lot of those employees are getting thousands of dollars deducted from their paychecks this month because of late tax bills on those full tuition benefits. The hospital says that employees are still going to be responsible for the taxes on their full ride tuition benefits. But Children's says it will work with payroll to send reminders about tax liability earlier in the year so that staffers aren't cooked at the end of the year trying to play catch up. Children's also wrote to me today saying that they want to clarify that they did not cut the benefit, as many stories have reported. I asked what verb they prefer. They said reduced is the verb they would prefer instead of cut. So,
Axed.
Slashed.
That's good. Curtail.
Sliced.
Chopped.
Reduced. I went right back to,
yeah. People get the idea if you're playing word games, at the end of the day, the nurses came out and said to the public, what do you think?
Yeah, and in that case, like the sunshine probably helped this situation quite a bit, because Children's was saying last week that they were going to have to cut this full tuition benefit to all these employees who are midway through degree programs. Think about that. You take the time, you get into a program, you're working your way through, and you've got all that credit, and you're thinking, I want to finish this program, but it's going to cost me $1,000 and thousands of dollars in debt to finish it. So luckily, they will now all be able to finish that program.
Yeah. If you know of somebody out there, yourself or somebody else, that's getting the financial shaft on something, and it's happening to a bunch of people, you need to reach out to Steve, because Steve's doing more and more of this. So your Steve on Your Side reports. Steve@9news.com is your email. Folks can just send you a note, and you can look into stuff. That's how this got started.
Happy to look into it. Yes, a bunch of Children's employees reached out to me. We got it on TV, and things happen.
All right, Steve, thank you.
Yeah.
City of Denver says it is going to meet its goal to move 1,000 people from the streets to shelter this year. And they're going to do it by moving hundreds of people out of 7 encampments in the next 2 weeks. The city shared its plan with City Council today, closing 7 encampments by December 31st, including 4 in the final 4 days of the year. Mayor Mike Johnson pledged to move 1,000 people indoors by year's end when he was elected this summer. Right now, the city says it has moved the city says it's moved 584 people off the streets. Important to note, some of those people may be homeless again right now. The city counts them towards achieving its goal of 1,000 people, even if they don't stay sheltered. So Denver's trying to shelter those 1,000 people while at the same time finding short-term housing for the migrants coming here from the southern border. Sending migrants to a hotel in Aurora went badly, and now Denver is changing course on that policy. You also heard about that situation here. First, our Mark Salinger explained how some vulnerable people had ended up on the streets because Denver had rented out an entire hotel for these migrants in Aurora. And Mark says, Denver says that they're not going to do this again.
Yeah, so Kyle, not only will Denver stop using this hotel, they will also send buses to come pick up the migrants so they don't then become homeless in Aurora once they're kicked out of the shelter. It's a total change from the plan that Denver put into action on Thanksgiving when it sent migrants to Aurora without leaders in Aurora actually being fully on board. Still, though, Denver won't close the hotel immediately. Migrants here will have vouchers that allows them to stay for 14 days or up to 37 days if they have kids. Once those vouchers expire, Denver will send buses to Aurora, pick up the migrants, and take them back to Denver, where presumably those migrants will then be homeless in Denver since they've already timed out of the shelter system. The city says at this point it's not kicking families out onto the streets. Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman was on the radio this morning saying he asked Denver Mayor Mike Johnston to stop sending migrants to his city. Kaufman says the whole thing was handled poorly, which Johnston seemed to have a very different view of when we talked to him last week.
I thought it was handled poorly, though. I mean, I think it wasn't explained to me that it wasn't just rooms in a hotel. It was taking over an entire hotel, and that there really wasn't a plan.
Some cities are less supportive than others, but I have to give my hat off to Aurora. They have been open. Mayor Kaufman's been a great partner, and we're looking at long-term partnerships there.
It's pretty clear there those two mayors might be on different pages for how this all went down, Kyle. At this point, we don't know what the long-term partnership is possible. The city of Denver now says that they'll find another hotel to house migrants in Denver. We don't know where that'll be or how they're going to do that, considering that Mayor Johnston already told us they're out of space. That's why we send people to Aurora.
Well, and the city of Denver has already burned a bridge or at least weakened it with Adams County because of the way that they came into a hotel in Adams County.
Exactly.
Leaders there said that they didn't get noticed. So at some point, you start losing neighbors that want to participate.
Yeah, so Johnston said that he talked to county commissioners in Aurora, not sure which county. Of course, their city council has a lot of power in Aurora. Didn't talk to city council members, though.
I was about to say, Aurora is made up of 3 different counties.
Right.
None of which have control over what goes on in the city of Aurora. Okay,
right.
All right, Mark, thank you. So perhaps you have heard House Republicans want to impeach President Joe Biden. What for? Unclear. Colorado's Democratic Rep. Joe Neguse tried to find out what for at a congressional hearing today. Republicans wouldn't say.
What is the specific constitutional crime that you're investigating?
Well, we're having an inquiry, so we can do an investigation and control the production of witnesses.
And what is the crime you're investigating?
And documents. High crimes, misdemeanors, and bribery.
What high crime and misdemeanor are you investigating?
Look, I will, once I get time, I will explain what we're looking at, and I will make the equivalency
No, I'm just asking you for
the last impeachment.
Key vote to formalize the impeachment inquiry against Biden is coming this week. Politico reports that the lone Republican holdout in the House is Colorado Republican Ken Buck, who's not running for re-election. Colorado's presidential primary ballots are set for now without Donald Trump's name. Secretary of State is waiting for the state Supreme Court to rule on whether Trump can appear on the ballot. Voters sued based on an obscure constitutional provision banning insurrectionists from holding future office. Court has to decide this challenge by January 6. Ruling could be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Colorado is preparing to go pick out its wolves, to go to Oregon and find 10 wolves that have all of their eyes and teeth and legs, because Colorado doesn't want to take in some cast-off, busted wolves from another state. But just now, there's a group of ranchers and farmers suing to delay the wolf's reintroduction in Colorado. The Colorado Cattlemen's Association and Gunnison County Stock Growers Association are suing the state and the feds. It's the last-ditch effort to pause the state's formal reintroduction of wolves. That's happening because voters in mostly urban areas outvoted the people in the rural areas on this issue in 2020. The lawsuit accuses the state of not properly addressing some of the concerns and not properly studying the full environmental impact of wolves. This suit asks for a delay.
wildlife populations will take a major hit. Producers will take a major hit. I think it will also affect recreationalists, mountain bikers, hikers, families going camping. There's going to be lots of impacts.
Any day now, CBW is going to send wildlife workers to Oregon to look around in the woods, capture 10 wolves, and bring them back here. I was curious where you keep 10 wolves while you were waiting for a lawsuit to play out. CBW wouldn't talk about that.
Everybody seems to know Rick Salinger around Denver as the reporter, but I'm lucky enough to be able to call you Dad.
Remembering a journalist's career that stretched for decades through the eyes of his son. And a mother's gratitude to have back a small something that reminds her of her boy. Next. Chris Bianchi, we need a new word for what it's called when it is cold but muggy. Right? That's what it was this morning. It felt so humid in the air, but we tend to associate that with warmth, but yet it was cold this morning, and a lot of that lingers tonight.
Yeah, unusual, no doubt about it. Kind of a Midwest kind of day, Midwest winter kind of day for us. One of those days where it was hard to get out of bed. But unfortunately for us in the foothills, it kind of goes beyond being unpleasant right now. Look at this in Idaho Springs. Zero visibility. We've had reports here in the foothills on I-70, once you get past about Lookout Mountain, that you can barely see the car in front of you because the fog is so thick. So folks, just a heads up, if you're heading up into the foothills on I-70 tonight, A, use those low beams. 2, keep in mind that bridges and overpasses freeze over first, so we're going to have some slick bridges and overpasses because it's below freezing, and we've got that fog up there. So it's pretty nasty up in the foothills right now. Avoid it if you can. Seeing some snow for us here across the mountains, mostly light stuff, but that heavy stuff kicks in for tomorrow. Winter storm warnings for southern Colorado, winter weather advisories in teal, and a widespread 3 to 6 inches plus for us in southern parts of the state. Light snow possible for us in Denver for tonight. Second wave for tomorrow night. I think the accumulations for us here in town will be light. Heaviest for us in southern Colorado. That's where we could see several inches worth of accumulation. That 7-day forecast. It warms up with those temperatures near 60 by Sunday.
If you have watched local news in Colorado for any part of the last 30 years, there's a very good chance that you know the name Rick Salinger. He's worked across the street at Channel 4 most recently. And Rick just stepped away from TV due to health reasons. He worked here at 9 News back in the 80s. A dogged and talented reporter, like his son, our Mark Salinger.
It's after this, just my brother was running around. So I'm trying to find a specific video, which is from when I was like 2 years old. It's my dad interviewing me on a fake TV set. Oh, here it is.
Say good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm Mark Salinger with the news.
I'm not Salinger with the news.
Just watching those clips, you kind of look back and you see all those memories, and it's just the beginning of my career there, quite literally, as just a little kid. My name's Mark Salinger, you might know me. I'm a reporter here at 9 News. So my dad, you might not know the connection necessarily, is Rick Salinger.
A carrier.
He's a reporter at Channel 4. He's been there for 30 years. And before that, he was here at 9 News for 6 years back in the 80s. Videos of my dad.
Rick Salinger has been corresponding.
My dad has spent 36 years working in Denver TV, and he's finally taken a step back and focusing on his health. I'll never forget, right when I first started at 9 News, we were covering the same story one day. My dad beat me, got some information that I had no idea how to get, and I was so stressed out. I was like, Dad, you can't do that to me. I said, hey, it's part of the game. It was so much fun to show up to stories and say, hey, Dad, it's like we're going to work together. We're on different teams, we're competitors, but it was so cool to be able to run into my dad and say, hey, we're doing the same job. This is both what we love, and we're doing that together, which is pretty darn cool. I've never known Denver TV without Rick Salinger, without you, Dad. Quite literally, as long as I have been alive, you have been on TV every day, and I'm sure going to miss that.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Salinger.
Everybody seems to know Rick Salinger around Denver as the reporter. Isn't that classic? But I'm lucky enough to be able to call you Dad.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Salinger in the news.
Rick, we wish you all the best. Thank you for your years of excellent journalism here in town. And thank you for the values you instilled in your son. We'll be right back. A class ring is meant to capture a very specific moment in a life. For a mother in Fort Collins, her son's ring, missing for 30 years, is a new connection to him. And she misses him so much.
The one on the left is his 16th birthday party. Brian was the oldest of my two children, and kid who loved adventure, loved bicycling, loved baseball. He was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 14. He turned 16 on October 19th, and I gave him his class ring for his 16th birthday. And then 10 days later, he died. After that, I had given his class ring to his sister, Christy. And for years, she wore it on a chain around her neck from October 19th to October 29th. And somewhere along the line, she lost it. And then 3 weeks ago, out of the blue, this woman calls, and she said, well, my husband and I were using a metal detector at City Park, and we found a class ring. And inside it says Brian Arball. And I was stunned. This ring was Brian's class ring. These people who found it are my angels. They had found the ring 8 years before, and for 8 years had been looking for Brian Ball. It was missing over 30 years, and I wasn't aware that it was missing. I don't think my daughter had mentioned it to me, but so when it came back to us, it was just a miracle. What wonderful people to be so persistent to try to find Brian. It's like having a piece of him back. I wear it every day, and I will, but I look down and I think of Brian, and I'm just happy. Yeah, it means a lot. It feels so good. It makes me very happy to have it back.
A beautiful story. The connection between the ring finders and Lori was finally made when the couple posted on Nextdoor, and Lori's neighbor saw it. Your feedback on what you call a cold, muggy day. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is small, yet full of holiday joy. This is Arthur picking up his Christmas tree. As a sweet ride, Arthur. We got the photo from Gil and Cheryl, his grandparents. They call Arthur their grand dude. Keep sending Colorado-style holiday joy our way. Email next@9news.com. You can use the hashtag HeyNext. A note from Alex and Parker tonight, who writes, thank you so much for Mark Salinger's story about Rick Salinger. Alex said, I lost my dad the year that I started my career 18 years ago. Stories like this make me think that my dad would be so proud of me, just like Rick is so proud of Mark. And Alex closes, this story truly made me feel great. Isn't that what it's all about, right? A chance to come together each night, share some stories about life in Colorado, the best parts, the worst parts, the stuff in between, the weird parts, and hopefully feel uplifted at the end of the day. There's no reason why the news has to make you feel horrible. See you next time.